So, Tom, your title is The Gospel of Legion. What's that about?
Well, actually, this is an idea that came from a Zen teacher who talks about Jesus. And his orientation, which I think is actually pretty accurate, is that our Gospels are really teaching tools created by individuals who had a deeper understanding of what Jesus was about. It probably wasn't anything to do with the names that are associated with it, the disciples. So what I've been playing with the idea of Legion, and let me remind you who Legion was. So in the gospel story, Jesus goes across the lake to this place, I don't remember the name of it, and this maniac, we would call him schizophrenic today, who had been chained. He would break his chains, he would do damage to himself, he was just, he would do damage to others, and he comes and he sees Jesus, and he falls down on his knees to worship him. And Jesus sends the demons, sends all of those voices, those competing voices in his head, off into like 2,000 or 1,000 pigs, which then run off the cliff and die. And then the people from the village, of course, say, "Go away, we don't want you around here." And Legion is healed. Legion wants to follow Jesus and be his disciple. And Jesus says, no, basically go share what God has done with your people. So I'm taking off from there. First of all, Legion was in such pain and such agony and crazy enough, because he was actually one of the few that could really see who Jesus was. That this persona, the schizophrenic, painful persona, just collapsed in the presence of one as awake as Jesus. And Legion had this transformation about that's typically very rare. Well, someone will go from being miserable to enlightened in no time at all. He's one of those. And what he did is he took Jesus' suggestion, and he went out and he started to gather a community around himself. And that I'm going to contend that Legion actually wrote the Gospel of Mark. There's no evidence for this, I'm just making it up. But that he wrote it to help people, his community, come to terms with all of these different voices in their heads, because he knows them well. And that's part of his past. And that he wrote the Gospel of Mark to point to those different voices that we all have in our heads, so that we could begin to cope with them. So the Gospel of Mark becomes, what part of you is Pontius Pilate? What part of you is Judas? What part of you is Mary Magdalene? And that these are characters that we can inhabit to know those parts of ourselves.
What is